of the historic ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. As the United States government shutdown enters its 11th day, the White House has started laying off thousands of federal workers across several agencies. US President Donald Trump has stated that the job cuts will be Democrat-oriented. Meanwhile, union leaders have warned that Trump's move could have a devastating effect upon services relied upon by millions of Americans. US National Guard troops are on the ground in Memphis, while judges have stalled President Donald Trump's plan to deploy the National Guard in Chicago and Portland. Republican Governor Bill Lee has supported the use of the National Guard to further a federal crackdown on crime in Tennessee. US President Donald Trump has announced that he will impose a sweeping 100% tariffs on all imports from China effective from the 1st of November, which is over and above the 30% already in place. Trump's move comes in direct retaliation to what the White House calls Beijing's hostile restrictions on the export of rare earth minerals. French President Emmanuel Macron has reappointed Prime Minister Sébastien Lecornu just 4 days after he tendered his resignation. The unexpected reappointment is seen as a high-stakes bid to end a political deadlock in France. Lecornu is now tasked with the urgent mission of forming a new cabinet and delivering a critical national budget by the end of the year. Massive explosion has leveled the Tennessee military explosive plant. At least 19 people are now unaccounted for, many of whom are feared dead. Federal and local agencies are on the scene, but the cause of this devastating explosion has not been ascertained yet. Nobel Peace Prize winner Maria Corina Machado has dedicated her award to US President Donald Trump, stating that he deserved the honor for his decisive support of Venezuela's struggle for democracy. Venezuelan opposition leader's statement comes just hours after the White House criticized the Nobel Committee for snubbing Trump. All right, viewers, those are the headlines and our top focus. Lebanon's President Joseph Aoun has condemned Israel for overnight airstrikes that hit civilian facilities in southern Lebanon, killing 1 person and wounding 7 others. Aoun called the attack heinous and unjustified, stating that it violated the ceasefire agreement that followed the truce in Gaza. Now, reports have suggested that Israeli warplanes carried out 10 raids targeting bulldozer and excavator yards in Al-Masaleh area. The Israeli military has confirmed the strike, stating that they dismantled Hezbollah infrastructure and machinery used to rebuild these positions. Tensions have remained high despite last November's ceasefire following more than a year of hostilities between Israel and the Iran-backed Hezbollah. With us on the broadcast is Mr. Matti Zweig, geopolitical expert, joining us from Tel Aviv. Thank you so much for taking our time and speaking to us on NewsX World. We're reporting fresh strikes having taken place in Lebanon. The IDF maintains that Hezbollah's infrastructure that was on the ground, that was being used to rebuild its previously dismantled hideouts, were now also taken down with this fresh strike. There have been, in fact, ultimatums issued by the US earlier and negotiations also taking place in Lebanon regarding the disarmament of Hezbollah. I wanted to understand from you, what is the situation regarding this? Where do these negotiations stand? Can we see the Lebanese government doing a little more than what they already are?
Well, good morning. I think that this is a particular alleged moment because of what's happening with Gaza, but it has nothing to do with Lebanon. With Lebanon, 1 year ago or more, it was agreed a ceasefire backed by the resolutions of the United Nations. Those resolutions say that Hezbollah is forbidden to deploy and rebuild themselves south of the river Litani. It means all South Lebanon. They have been breaking constantly all these agreements. They have been also avoiding Lebanese legitimate troops from the country to dismantle them for their weapons in many, many places. And this is why Israel is saying all the time, we are here to implement the UN resolutions and to give safety to our inhabitants in the north. So every time that Hezbollah is broken the agreement, we are going to disturb this. We are going to attack this. And this is exactly what happened the last time. I mean, if there are going to be civilians that they were injured, we still don't know. They're always going to say that. I mean, even if we hit a military place or a military that they are reconstructing place or parts of missiles and some places that they are storing them, this is exactly what Israel is attacking. Israel is not going to attack only for enjoying this, but only in the places that Hezbollah is trying to rebuild themselves. So all the rest are only words. They are not implementing the UN resolution, and Israel is helping the Lebanon legitimate government to implement it.
On the other hand, we've also seen certain accusations being leveled by the Lebanese government. In fact, the Lebanese government has recently stated that it foiled an Israeli plot to carry out assassinations and bombing attacks in the country. In fact, the Lebanese General Security Directorate, their national intelligence agency, has stated that it dismantled this network that is working for Israel. How is the administration, the Israeli administration, viewing these accusations, these claims that are being made by Lebanon?
Well, Lebanon, of course, is a fragile country, a fragile government that has been more active against Hezbollah after everything that Israel did, not before. I mean, they are most all the time trying to really taking their Hezbollah weapons, taking over their places in the different parts of the country, and they have their internal political pressures, and even Hezbollah have some ministers in the actual government. So of course they have to say that, but it's not what is going on the ground. On the ground, Israel is not anymore in Lebanon. Israel only left 5 observation points all over the border between the countries, but from the Lebanese side, this is correct because they see that the central government of Lebanon, of Yosef Aoun, is still not taking care of all what they have decided. So, of course, you are going to listen the Lebanese government speak in this way, but the job is not done already. Israeli safety is not secured 100% for hundreds of thousands of citizens that they want to go back to their homes in the Israeli side is still not 100%. So if you don't see it in the news, it doesn't mean it doesn't happen. This is happening. Hezbollah continue to try to rebuild their forces, receiving money from their masters in Iran. And of course, they have also an extra problem, which is that since Assad Syria fall down, they have a lot of problems to pass over the Syrian border and to continue doing all what they did in the past, which means drug smuggling and weapon smuggling. So they are in pressure, they are under pressure, and that's what is going on, and Israel is going to continue answering to the problems and their unsafety things that they have in their northern border.
And that's not all that's taking place in Lebanon. Lebanon has also claimed that it has arrested 32 people on suspicion of providing Israel information on Hezbollah that has facilitated strikes on the group. So far, according to the information we're gathering, 9 people have been tried by the Lebanese military court, while 23 are under investigation. Is this then, and all of these statements and claims that are coming forward, a bid by Lebanon to stall the talks as far as disarmament of Hezbollah is concerned? And what exactly does the Lebanese government gain by doing so?
Well, this is really part of the game. I mean, also Iran, after the 12-day war with Israel, They say they discovered hundreds of people helping Israel. They put them on trial. They hung some of them in public squares. I mean, this is brutal, and this is sometimes true that Israel gets some people to help them, but in most of the cases is untrue. It's just adjusting some internal problems between them and trying to understand why they are failing time after time. And I don't know if they are real collaborators with Israel, but no doubt that Israel is not just trying to avoid Hezbollah of rearming themselves. They're also trying with local people to get information. This is nothing new. But if these people arrested, they are real collaborators of Israel, nobody knows at this point.
All right, so with that, I would like to thank you for taking our time, sharing your perspective with us on NewsX World. In other news from the Middle East, particularly in Gaza, thousands of displaced Palestinians are now returning to their abandoned homes. This comes a day after the ceasefire has taken in effect and Israeli troops have started pulling back under the first phase of a US brokered peace plan. Families can be seen carrying belongings and pushing carts through the rubble towards Gaza City, which just days ago was under heavy bombardment. Let's in fact listen in to what some of the Gazans have had to say.
الحرب صحيح انتهت ولكن لا فيش امان للحرب انها ما ترجعش. صح انه احنا رجعنا على بيوتنا لكن بيوتنا مهدمه ولا تصلح للسكن. فاحنا اليوم بنحاول انه قد ما كان انه نتعايش مع الواقع اللي موجود بحيث انه بس نعيش، اما ما في حياه في غزه. حتى اهل الجنوب لو روحوا من الجنوب حيكون بيوتهم ردت روحنا انها هي اقل ما فيها بدنا نشوف بيوتنا هي اللي مدمره واحنا عارفين انها مدمره. جينا تفاجئنا بكميه الدمار اللي مسوينها للمواطنين. طب ايش ذنب الناس هذه كلها؟ كل اللي في المنطقه هذه كله ولا في حماس ولا في فتح ولا في اي تشي. كلهم ناس مواطنين صاحبي هذول.
وصف لنا الدمار لاي درجه؟ انت بتحكي عن دمار
اي درجه؟ هذا لدرجه الصفر الدمار، ما ضلش اصلا اكثر من هيك الدمار، ما انت تاخذ لك صوره هيك.
الحمد لله شعورنا هلقيت شعور لا يوصف. الحمد لله الشكر لله الله. بنتي هذه عندها كسر في الجمج من اصابه برضه في الحرب هذه، والحمد لله هلقيت ان شاء الله بقدر اعالج ابني وتكون اخر معاناه لنا هذه بقدره الله. بس احنا مبسوطين عهد الله كثير 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 احنا انها وقفت هالحرب وخلصت المعاناه تبعتنا بقدره واحد احد يا رب.
الحمد لله وربنا هيك ياخذ باليد وعلى يد الله ويدكم ان شاء الله.
All right, viewers, with that, we shift our focus away from the Middle East towards Europe. Now, Russia has stated that it has wiped out a group of foreign mercenaries fighting for the Ukrainian armed forces in the Kharkov region. Russia has stated that the mercenaries consisted of troops from the United States, Poland and Colombia. Russia has also stated that the IDS found at the scene have in fact confirmed the identities of 3 of those who have been nabbed. Now, while according to reports, Ukraine has lost up to 220 soldiers as well as an M113 armored personnel carrier. It was reported that heavy flamethrower systems and aviation defeated the manpower and equipment of 2 mechanized brigades, a territorial defense brigade and a brigade of the National Guard of Ukraine. With us on the broadcast is Mr. Glenn Grant, former advisor to the Ukrainian Defense Minister. Thank you so much for taking our time and speaking to us on NewsX World. Interesting statement coming out from Russia. They've claimed that they've wiped out a group of foreign mercenaries fighting for the Ukrainian armed forces. Now, recently we've seen reports, we've also seen visual proof of the North Koreans fighting for Russia, other foreign nationals, including some Indian nationals, also having been taken in by the Ukrainian forces after they surrendered their weapons. Some even claimed that they were imprisoned on drug charges in Russia and chose instead to fight rather than serve their prison sentence. Is this recent statement then a bid by the Russians to change the narrative and to challenge the visual proof that's coming out from Ukraine?
I think you've hit the nail on the head. I mean, there is not a tiny bit of news on the Ukrainian side about any losses. Yes, maybe 2 or 3 people, but I mean the Russian claims are clearly nonsense, and as you say, they're claiming that it's all foreign mercenaries. Well, I don't know exactly where the foreign legion, which is fighting for Ukraine, is based at the moment, but I can tell you one thing, that if there were losses of that sort, it would be all over the internet in Ukraine, because even 20 gets a major coverage. So what we're looking at, as you say, is Russia actually trying to almost hide the fact that they're having difficulty with recruitment of Russians, and that they're running out of manpower, and that they're having to exist now on foreigners to actually to sustain the battle.
Indeed, and that's not all. We've also in fact learned that at least 20 people, civilians particularly, have been wounded in Ukraine's capital, Kiev. A child, in fact, has been killed in a separate attack by the Russians in Ukraine. In positive news, we're also getting to know that power has been restored to 800,000 people in Kiev after Russian strikes on Ukraine's energy grid. Now, in the meantime, we have seen that the Trump administration's focus as of late has been on Gaza and securing the truce over there. Trump will be visiting the Middle East as well. But in recent times, we've not seen him really talk much in the media about the war between Russia and Ukraine. Why so?
Because he's made all these claims, and he made all these claims about how he was going to stop the war, and he's failed to do anything. And the problem is, as I've said many times on this channel, is that he actually likes he actually likes Putin more than he likes Zelensky or Ukraine. And he's actually supporting Putin. In fact, yesterday sent him a thank you for nominating him for the Nobel Peace Prize. And you don't do that to your enemies. So it's a very, very bizarre situation with Trump at the moment, and his actions. I mean, he talks a lot, but actually very little is actually happening in support of Ukraine.
Indeed, and we've also recently seen a statement by the US First Lady Melania Trump stating that she has established a direct line of communication with Vladimir Putin. She claimed that this was to secure the lives of children on the ground. But the fact in itself that the First Lady has a direct line of communication with the Russian president has not gone down well in the United States of America across party lines. How are the Ukrainians viewing this at this time?
Well, they know full well that Putin is just playing Melania Trump. He's not going to do anything about children. He may send 2 back or 4 back, something like that, just to keep this going. But his main aim through Melania is to influence Donald, and which I'm sure is going to happen, and also to make it seem as though Russia is actually a good guy in this battle and in this war, which of course it's not. But he will do anything to keep Trump on the hook, and to raise the status of Russia as not as the evil side in this war.
All right, sir, with that, I would like to thank you for taking out time, of course, sharing your analysis with us on NewsX World. With that, viewers, we're shifting our focus to developments coming in from China. People in Beijing have hoped for calm and expressed confidence in the resilience of China's domestic market after US President Donald Trump revived the trade war against Beijing. This, of course, comes as Trump has unveiled additional 100% tariffs on China's US-bound exports, along with new export controls on all critical software by the 1st of November. Now, these 100% tariffs are being imposed on top of the 30% tariffs that already exists. In fact, the deadline is 9 days prior to the existing tariff relief being set to expire. The move ended the truce between the 2 largest economies, with promises to sharply hike tariffs in reprisal against China curbing its critical mineral exports. Let's in fact listen in to what the residents of Beijing have had to say.
其实我觉得两个国家这样打来打去，其实持久下来肯定是两败俱伤的。对，不论是对中国也好，还是对美国也好，都不是太，就是没有弊大于利，只能是这样说。其实还是以和为贵。
就是更多的就是在乎大家日常的这些柴米油盐这些东西。我觉得在这些方面，不是抛开一些高端的产品化，就咱们国家自给自足这一块还是可以实现的。但高端产品的话，我觉得就是现在市场也有一些能够就彼此博弈的空间吧。就是对方有高端制造业，我们也有高端制造。
With us on the broadcast is Dr. Jayant Menon, Senior Fellow at ICES Yusof Ishaq Institute, joining us from Singapore. Thank you so much for taking our time and speaking to us on NewsX World. Now, with Trump's latest salvo, the world's largest economy is once again in an all-out trade war with the world's second largest economy. In your assessment, how will this impact global markets if this continues?
I think we've already seen the US market respond very negatively to this development. I think it's still early days. I mean, we've seen Trump do a lot of erratic things. It's a threat that he's raised. Whether it'll actually play out is the question. I mean, this could all be part of the to and froing of the bargaining process. In fact, what triggered this response from Trump was the Chinese basically coming up with their own version of the foreign direct product rule, which is basically trying to control exports by firms of critical minerals and rare earths. This is what the US has been doing with its chips. For a long time already. So obviously China was basically, in some sense, doing a quid pro quo, doing the same thing back to the US, and that, of course, angered Trump greatly. He only understands pandering to his threats, and so I think that's where we are right now.
Indeed, and we've heard, in fact, some of the people in Beijing speak out. In fact, one of the residents has pointed out that it will hurt both countries. But in your assessment, who will this move hurt more, the US or China, and in what ways?
It will hurt both countries. As to who gets hurt more, I guess, we'll have to wait and see. My sense is that this will actually end up hurting the US more than China. The US is a very important market. But it's 15% of trade, world trade, right? And China, will feel the pain of losing out on sales in the world's largest import market, but they will survive. What I think we'll find is the US might be engineering a recession with inflation or stagflation going forward. And this is going to be very painful to US consumers. And it's unnecessary. And finally, I think the world as a whole will also be slightly worse off. There'll be winners and losers in different parts of the world, but the world as a whole will be worse off.
Indeed, you've spoken of this inflation, recession, double whammy. The US government is currently shut down. The federal workers are furloughed. Many are also being laid off. There are fears that with salaries not being disbursed, consumption will reduce and it will snowball into the US economy being impacted adversely in the long run if the shutdown continues. On top of that, the tariffs have now also resulted in higher prices for the consumers. So could we then expect the US Federal Reserve to reduce the interest rates in order to curb the adverse impact?
Well, we'll have to see how these things translate into the data before the Fed will respond. They'll be driven by the actual numbers on the labor market and also on, of course, the GDP numbers. So far, we've seen the inflation slow to be reflected in the numbers. And this is understandable. These things take time. You know, a lot of firms had stockpiled inventories in anticipation of these tariffs coming into effect. And while they run down those inventories, there won't be much of a pass-through in prices. But that will soon end. And then I think we'll see prices rise. The Fed is firstly and mostly geared to control inflation. They have a inflation target that they must abide by. Of course, they will balance this with the employment outcomes. But first and foremost, they have an inflation target, and that's what they'll be guided by. But they might be forced to actually loosen interest rates or monetary policy faster than they originally planned. And of course, if Trump has puts his man in the main job when the current term expires, then I think we'll see a politicization of monetary policy that will see a lot faster cuts in interest rates.
So I'd like to come back to a point you had raised in your first answer. We've seen the Wall Street crashing after Trump's announcement. Dow Jones has fallen 1.9%, S&P is down 2.7%, and NASDAQ has also tumbled 3.5%. All in all, 1.5 trillion US dollars have been wiped out. Should this then be an indication to Donald Trump to perhaps not adopt such a hardline protectionist stance?
I think Donald Trump does look at the stock market as a gauge of his performance in the job. So he may, be swayed by these numbers. The stock market is currently at all-time highs. So, there's a lot of froth, and some correction is, I think, way overdue. And, something like this will trigger that kind of correction. If the slide continues, he might be, forced to sort of try and ameliorate the markets by not really giving up on protectionism. I don't think he'll ever do that. He's wedded to tariffs, but he might actually try and slow down some of the measures, or certainly this 100% threat on China is ridiculous. I mean, it's not sustainable for either party. And I think the question is, when will it be removed and by how much? Whether it'll happen before they meet at the APEC meeting in South Korea, or certainly I don't think it will last much longer than that meeting when they come face to face, but probably it might even happen before then.
All right, so with that, I would like to thank you for taking out time, sharing your analysis with us on NewsX World. With that, viewers, we're shifting our focus to what's happening in Seychelles. Polls have opened in Seychelles' main island of Mahé for the final day of the presidential runoff between opposition leader Patrick Hermene and incumbent Wavel Ramkalawan. Voters are choosing the nation's next leader after neither candidate secured the required 50% majority in September's first round, with Hermene receiving 48.8% and Ramkalawan 46.4% of the vote. Now, the narrow margin reflects a deeply divided electorate in the Indian Ocean archipelago of around 100,000 people. Ramkalawan, who first took office in 2020, is seeking to consolidate his position after ending decades of dominance by the former ruling party. Hermene has campaigned on promises of economic reform and tackling the rising costs of living affected by many Seychelles families. Both candidates have focused their campaigns on key issues including tourism recovery, sustainable development, and managing the nation's debt burden. The runoff follows a peaceful first round that saw strong voter turnout across the archipelago's inhabited islands. With that, viewers, we're shifting focus to the Philippines. An earthquake of 7.4 magnitude has struck off Davao Oriental Province in southern Philippines. At least 6 people have now lost their lives, triggering panic and causing damage across the region. Ednar Dayanigaran, Regional Director of the Office of Civil Defense, has stated that 3 people were killed in Mati City, 1 in Davao City and 2 in Pantucan, a mining town in Davao de Oro Province. The Davao City Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Office has confirmed the fatalities and has stated that 347 people were treated for fainting or minor injuries. Hospitals and schools across the region sustained damage and scenes of confusion have unfolded as people rushed outdoors to escape the falling debris. Some local residents have reacted to the situation. Listen in.
It was very terrifying. The earth was just shaking violently. When I first felt it, I was sleeping and my immediate reaction was to get out of the house. And I saw a lot of people coming out of buildings, coming out of their schools or workplaces. Everything was just a chaos. And you couldn't help but feel a deep sense of fear from everything that was happening. My first reaction, after getting out of the house, I had to check up on my family and my friends.
Ganun na yung lupa. Tumakbo ko doon kasi yung mama ko doon sa teres. Nakaupo lang siya. 80 years old siya.
So sa ngayon, ito lang muna ang mga gamit talaga namin. Nag-put up kami, naghingi kami kay Mayor kahapon ng mga tents para malagyan temporarily ng mga patients. At dito na namin gagawin yung mga yung pag-check up, yung if ever may suturing, dito na rin. So we have to make of this place sa ngayon.
With that, viewers, it's a wrap on this bulletin. More news and updates on the other side. Stay tuned on NewsX World.